Welcome to the Influencer Lifestyle. We're really excited to have this amazing group of panelists here today. My name is Shane Griffin. I work at SAG-AFTRA. A little bit about SAG-AFTRA. We are the largest entertainment union in the world. We represent 160 professional performers. And we are so excited to be engaging in this conversation about content creators as this industry is just blooming. So I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves, but we'll start with Adam.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Adam Westcott. I'm a partner and co-founder at Select Management Group. We're the leading digital talent management and entertainment company. We work with more top YouTube talent than any other traditional agency or management company, primarily out of the lifestyle category. So you may know Gigi Gorgeous, My Life is Ava, Lord DIY, Brooklyn and Bailey, and more. And then we also have our original side where we do original production and joint ventures in partnership with the talent. Our most recent example of a successful joint venture is actually being modeled by Rebecca. It's called Lash Next Door with Brooklyn and Bailey, and it launched last week and sold out overnight. And we're excited to roll out more this week.
I'm Sam Lee, and I'm a producer manager with InArtists. We package and sell digital content, and we rep the talent. Writers, actors, directors, mostly in the comedy space, a lot of music, artists, and gamers.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Zamolo, and I'm a social media influencer. I have a YouTube channel, I'm on Musical.ly, Instagram, and I've been creating content now for over 10 years.
Hello, I'm Mariam Gaffarenia, and I'm a creator of Glam and Posh, which is a fashion and beauty blog. And you can find me under @Glam&Posh all over social media platforms.
Hi, I'm Roxetta Risa. I'm a beauty and makeup YouTuber. I also have like Instagram and other social media, so basically an influencer all around. And I've been creating content for about 3 years now.
Hi, I'm Drew Baldwin, but you can just call me Baldwin. And I am the founder and CEO of TubeFilter. TubeFilter is the most, thank you, got a fan, widely read and trusted news source for the online video entertainment industry. So if you consider yourself a professional in this industry, you should definitely subscribe to the newsletter. And read TubeFilter for sort of all the industry news. I also created and executive produced the Streamy Awards, which is the highest honor for online video creators in YouTube and social media. And I'm very honored to be on this panel. And usually I'm a moderator, and so this is very new for me. But Shane, you've been doing a great job so far.
So far. All right. So, I think it's really interesting how everyone found themselves migrating to this digital space, right? We know kind of the trajectory of the more traditional Hollywood story, but I'd like to hear from you all how you started on YouTube and other digital platforms, starting with you, Rebecca.
Well, I actually got my start when I moved down here after I graduated from UC Santa Barbara, go Gauchos. And I originally came down for acting. I studied improv at Second City in Los Angeles, and I was doing commercials. I had a sports agent, and that's basically how I made my living while I was auditioning for TV and film, movies. I did a lot of smaller things there, but commercials was definitely where I made my living. And during all of that, I had a disease called ulcerative colitis, and I found out I had to have my colon removed, and I had to wear an ostomy bag. And so obviously a lot of my stuff had to do with fitness and swimsuits and things like that, and I didn't think I'd be able to act during my surgeries. I had 3 surgeries in 9 months, and so I thought, well, I guess I can do YouTube because I can still be creative and I can film from the waist up, and I just didn't know how good I would feel. I wouldn't be able to drive to auditions, and so that's kind of how I started on YouTube, which is a little different from other people, but yeah. And here I am.
Yeah. Healthy. And Roxette?
I was a competitive figure skater all my life, so I was actually wearing makeup since I was 4 years old for competitions. And so I was always like into makeup and beauty and everything. But once I had moved away from home to train at like a world level training center, I had to start doing my own makeup because I didn't have my mom around, I didn't have my family around. So I just kind of started playing around and like through trial and error improved, and then my friends would start asking me to do their makeup. So I was like, you know what, I don't have time to like teach everybody one by one, so I'm just gonna make a video and help you guys out. So I made a YouTube video, and it kind of caught on. I found that I really liked the creative process of like thinking of a makeup look, feeling inspired, being able to film it, edit it, and put it up and know that it was something that I created from start to finish. And now I'm signed with Ipsy, so I'm an Ipsy creator, so we have like a big production team, and we have a production facility so that we can just create the highest content possible. So. Yeah.
Great. Miriam, what about you?
All right, so I started my blog actually as a hobby. To go back a little bit, I grew up my parents telling me, you go to school, you get a degree, and then you go get a job. So I followed that path. I went to school, I graduated with my MBA, and I started working at a corporation. I was very unhappy, to say the least, and I started following fashion bloggers about maybe 4 years ago. And I knew I wanted to do something creative, and I knew I wanted something that is related to fashion and beauty, because growing up, I've always loved it. Since I was so little, I've always liked fashion. I used to play with my grandmother's pearls all the time, playing dress up. But I thought if I wanted to combine the two, I had to become a fashion designer, which didn't really speak to me, so I never really pursued that. When blogging started becoming a real thing, I started mine. But again, at the time, it was really an outlet for me because I was feeling very unhappy. But shortly after I started, I got such a great response from my followers, and my account started growing, and that's how I knew that this is what I'm supposed to do.
Amazing. And Adam, you started in traditional television and film, so how did you make the migration over?
Yeah, I'm kind of old school. I've been working in digital for 13 plus years now. And I spent 4.5 years at E! Entertainment and Style Network helping with their online video. So originally it was putting video players throughout the site, eonline.com, and then they started signing deals with the Hulus, Verizon Wireless, iTunes of the world. So I facilitated all of the delivery of the media to those third parties. Started to catch on to YouTube, launched all of Comcast's YouTube channels, and then Kardashians was doing well because of obviously search and recognition from the network. But then I found kids like Phil DeFranco and Toby Turner, Shane Dawson, who were doing bigger views from their basements. And I ultimately left E! to work on a show with Phil DeFranco and Toby Turner called Cute When Fail back in the day for any old school people. Ended up working with Ellen Blair Fowler, launched one of the YouTube funded channels in 2011 called You Look Hot, HAUTE. And then the rest is history. Started working with all top fashion, beauty, lifestyle talent.
Amazing. And Sam, what about you?
I was at a traditional talent agency here in LA, CAA, and with one of their agents there, packaging film. And so he repped writers, actors, directors, producers, and so soup to nuts, putting together film the kind of the old school way, getting foreign sales up, and then looking to get in the festivals and the award shows and everything. And ultimately, I kind of saw on the horizon the change coming, and it was, you'd been doing it for a while. For me, it took a little while to get into it, but in 2013, 2014, I had a couple of friends that were working in digital. One of them repped a dog, Dinky the dog. And we started in the mailroom together, and then he went off in his direction and ended up repping a dog who had like 100,000 followers on Instagram. And the photos would be of the dog and like Diplo and Skrillex. I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, what is this? And he's like, and he showed me some of the money the dog was making, and I was just like, all right, I gotta figure this out. I really gotta figure this out. And so I basically just take that old school approach, traditional media, traditional talent, and apply it to the new media, new buyers. And we're just doing the same thing, packaging content and selling it in the same way, repping the talent.
Yeah, amazing. And then Drew, you have an interesting trajectory. You want to tell us how you got started? Because you've been around since the beginning. The beginning of time.
Beginning of time. We started TubeFilter in 2008, 10 years ago, with a vision to provide a professional perspective on this really nascent and very interesting and compelling new media, which was online video. We found that there was an extraordinary amount of creativity. There was this low barrier for entry. New voices were emerging, so much creativity and experimentation. We wanted to advocate for this industry. And so through the news publication, we took a professional approach to those people who were also acting professionally. At the time, there was no YouTube partner program. There wasn't really a business there, but there certainly was a distinction between random videos that went viral and then people that were intentionally putting out content for audiences. And so through our news site and through industry meetups, and then very soon after that, I'd say within 6 to 8 months of founding TubeFilter, we created the Streaming Awards, which we modeled after the Emmys and have gone through many evolutions since then, especially focusing on influencers as an entire new category of a content form factor. We really have always, as our mission, been an advocate and champion for this independent industry. And so it's been an interesting 10 years. We're already in our eighth year of Streaming Awards, and we've sort of been all over from television. We were on cable television with a partnership with MTV and Viacom, to Twitter, YouTube, self-publishing. We've kind of seen it. I think what really was a boost for us was when we started the TubeFilter and the Streaming Awards. It was during a big strike, the Writers Guild strike, and so there was a huge shutdown in entertainment, and there was a lot of people who are looking to do work. So everything was really driven by passion from the very beginning, even sort of traditional entertainment. And there was a political statement to be made, like, we don't need the studios, we're going to go in the online video. And there's a couple iterations there as well, but that's how we got our start. And I think we chose wisely.
Yeah, and to that effect, I mean, it's so interesting as more and more people come onto these platforms and try to build an audience. It's interesting to see, like, what makes a person successful in this space. And from your perspectives as both creators and also as representatives, like, what sets a person on the path towards success?
Well, I can say those people who are committed. You know, I mentioned passion earlier, yeah. And I feel like many of these successes seem like they're overnight, but it really takes at least 2 nights to become a star on YouTube. I think you'll see that it's very unrewarding for a very long time in online video, and so almost every creator that I've talked to who's been successful has always been driven by passion, because it sustains them through those low times, especially in the beginning, and then also just a commitment for consistency. I mean, if you give up, then you will never be successful. And I found that people, it's really work, and you have to treat it like a professional in order to reap those sort of rewards.
And
Would
Rebecca,
anyone agree with that?
Yeah. And Rebecca, you've it's a very competitive world, but you've found ways to collaborate with other female creators. Can you speak about how that works? And
so I definitely agree with him. Passion. I've always loved creating, and whether I was acting or I had gotten into producing before I started my channel, and my channel really grew, I guess, this last year. But again, 10 years in the making of producing content, and even though I've just recently been on digital, I've been creating content for a long time. What I would say is you do have to treat it like a business, and also understand that every platform is different. So if you're from traditional, digital is so different. You can't treat it the same. And when you see that, as far as creating with other YouTubers, understanding that you have something to offer and someone else might have something else to offer. So when I was very strategic getting into digital, where I knew I had something to offer as far as with producing. I could produce anything. So I would go to a creator and I'd say, hey, I'd really like to collab with you. I have no followers, or I have 10,000 followers. You have 1 million. But I will produce a full video for you. I know it will go like viral. I mean, you can never say that, but I did. I don't know why. I can guarantee that it will do very well. I'll cater it to your audience. I knew how to do all that. So
I
would
would deliver them their
I
video?
Would, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So for example, my first one, I could do parodies really well, and Super Bowl was coming up. So I wrote out a whole Super Bowl one. I went to someone with 600,000 subscribers, and I said, we can put this on your channel. You're a singer. I'll bring in a choreographer. It'll go on your channel. And then on my channel, I want to do something that will bring your audience to my channel. So I did just a fun Q&A with him, and his video got to go on the news. He got all this recognition. It was something he hadn't done, and that's kind of how I started. So I think it's just finding what you can offer somebody else. And for me, I can do something on Instagram. I'll collab with someone, but I'll put it on my Musical.ly account. My Musical.ly account has over 8 million. So for them, they're like, well, I need to grow that. And I'm like, I want to grow my Instagram. And so it's like, as long as you're strategic about it and you bring something to the table, especially creatives, it's like you're interested. You're like, okay, you have the idea already ready for me. Like, I'm pumping out content all the time. Like, this makes it easy, you know? And so that's kind of what I did, and that's how I got to work with a lot of the creators that I had, especially early on when I wasn't that big and maybe they were.
Amazing. And to that point, how long did it take you, Miriam, to build your presence to where you are now?
I started my blog at the end of 2015, so almost 3 years.
Wow. And just for the audience, what is your following count? Like, how have you grown it? Like, where are you at now?
I am at 142, I believe, on Instagram, and it's a lot of hard work. I had 2 jobs for a little over 2 years. I was working during the day at the office. I would come home and work on my blog. Weekends, I would work on my blog. If you ask any of my friends or family members, they tell you I wouldn't see them that much. I was working all the time, but luckily they're all still in my life. They've been very supportive. But it is a lot of hard work. And one more thing I'd like to add is, in order to be successful, you have to be very authentic. Just because someone is doing something and it's working for them, it's not going to work for you. Just copying somebody else's style is not the key to success. So it's also very important to remember that, because I feel like in this field, it's really easy to drift away from it. So you need to constantly remind yourself who you are, what your brand represents, and why you even started in the first place.
And I love that you touched on the point that this is work, right? This is passion, but this is also a job.
Right.
And to that point, I'd love to talk more about the business side of things and how this has translated into a career and not just a hobby. I don't know if anyone wants to take that lead.
Well, it depends. When you ask the question about success, it really depends what your goals are. So if we're talking about YouTube talent and success, it might be creating a sustainable career on digital where they don't have to work other jobs. So it does become a full-time job. And I would say the difference between traditional entertainment and digital is that these individual creators are jack of all trades. They act as the writer, the director, the producer, and as the talent. And so you have to be self-taught, you have to be willing to learn and iterate in real time. I mean, Musical.ly didn't exist 5 years ago, so you have to take on new platforms as they make sense for your business. And I think it's a very entrepreneurial space. You have to have that mindset of, I'm gonna roll up my sleeves, get my hands dirty, and do this myself. And then obviously the consistency and the passion play a big part of that.
One of the most attractive elements to digital for me, I don't know about you guys, but being in traditional, we'd have a monthly staff meeting, then the memo would go out, and then maybe we'd implement change in like 6 months. Whereas I read TubeFilter, and I'll see a change or some sort of, something that sparks interest, and I say, hey guys, we need to do this, and maybe not Snapchat anymore because they don't really care about creative. Something we could switch, pivot on a dime, and make moves in a way that's just so much quicker than traditional. And digital for us is that's something that's most attractive to me, is just being able to kind of switch things up on a dime.
And from a business perspective, the core brand on YouTube and Instagram and digital is the core business opportunity is brand opportunity. So brand integrations, whether it's a 30-second mention or dedicated video. And right now there's big conversations around brand safety and tying your brand to certain personalities and individuals. So there is that level of quality and consistency in the work you're providing. Would this appeal to a brand? Does it appeal to your core audience? Is there potential for it to go beyond your core audience? So you're also programming the content that you're creating.
Well, I love that you brought up brand integrations and brand partnerships, because last year brands spent reported $1 billion in this space. So there's a lot of money going into this world, and it's just slated to continue to increase and rise. So I'm wondering, how do you navigate, especially for the creators, being authentic to your vision, your voice, but also meeting the needs of the brand? Because that must be hard.
Well, sure. So for me, when I get approached by a brand and they're interested in collaborating with me, I don't say yes right away. I think about it, I look at their product, I look at their audience, and I compare that to mine. Because my loyalty ultimately is to my followers. So I don't want to give them something that they're not interested in. And like I said, I want to be authentic. I don't want to shift away from that. So it's very hard to say no sometimes, especially when they're offering you a really nice compensation. But I think it's very necessary sometimes to just say no and walk away.
Yeah. I think it's about knowing your audience and knowing yourself. My brand is not sexy, and so if a lingerie company came to me and my audience is very young, it would be an easy no. But, you know, I had a year-long partnership with Taco Bell. I love Taco Bell. My audience knows that. My audience knows I love Forever 21. There's like integrations that are just very natural. So if you can think about the brands that you would go to the store and you would buy it yourself, or you'd go there on your own, like those are the brands that you say yes to because they fit with who you are authentically, staying true to like who you are.
And are you finding that audience are being receptive to those partnerships? I mean, you have to be authentic, of course, but I mean, they're wising up too that these are paid partnerships.
I think if you're maintaining the level of quality in your content, so Instagram, for example, if it's a sponsored post, but it's fitting your aesthetic and your overall creative, then the audience is going to be just as receptive, although there is some abrasiveness to it, like as in the partnerships tag at the top and how people are encountering that. But in general, it's become fairly common. So the audience understands, well, if I want more content, there has to be money involved, and so brand opportunities provide the creators with the means to continue providing content. And it is a matter of figuring out the balance. So, you know, if you're a YouTube talent posting weekly video, you look at it like a programming schedule. I have 4 videos per month. I would say like 1 to 2 max with brand integration, so that you're still doing a majority of organic content to satisfy the audience.
Sammy, you look like you have something to say.
No, I mean, well, we try to, I mean, just moreover, we try to make it as native as possible, almost to the point where we're tricking our fans. I mean, so...
Don't tell the FTC
I know,
that.
I was going to say. So just to give, I'm just going to jump in really quickly. So the FTC rolled out guidelines of proper disclosure for influencer marketing. SAG-AFTRA actually partnered with TubeFilter in doing a panel on this very topic. And I'm curious, you know, there's still controversy as to how that works in this world.
Well, because, so the FTC is actually guidelines, so it's not a law, but there are now lawsuits because people have disobeyed the guidelines. We actually defer to the brand or the platform, best practices. So I think now more than ever, the easiest solution is just to identify everything as an ad and to include the proper verbiage, whether it's, you know, hashtag ad or sponsor, and then in YouTube descriptions. And now the platforms have built out functionality like the handshake on Facebook and the partner tag on Instagram, so that they're requiring identifying things as sponsored. So ultimately the creator can get away with just doing it, because how can you ever scale and monitor all of that stuff? But the brands themselves and the platforms are helping to evolve the process.
Yeah, so I was speaking to the content. So of course we'll adhere, hashtag ad above the fold. That you're not even allowed to have it below where you click
Right.
see more on Instagram, for instance. I mean, the content is so native to the profile, the aesthetic, that you'll have fans in the comments asking, like, did you actually get paid for this, or was this you? And so, I mean, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to say the most important element to any deal and the content and the creation is the fan. The fan needs to be excited about what you're doing, no matter who you're doing it with, as long as that content creator seems in their element, happy to do what they're doing, then the fan can get behind it, for the most part. You have a little vitriol here and there, but
Yeah,
The bigger
always haters.
opportunity now is longer term endorsement and brand partnership. So it's great that Rebecca had a year-long commitment and relationship with Taco Bell, because that's consistency for her audience. So you're not just saying it one day and then 2 days later, a month later, using a competitive product. And brands are putting more and more money behind 360 campaigns. So My Life is Ava, Lord DIY for Fanta, which is Coca-Cola, there were billboards, there were commercials, there was Instagram and social requirements and YouTube videos. But if you're seeing it across the board, then it's much more familiar to that audience, less abrasive of like, oh, they're being paid to do that one piece of content.
Yeah, it always seems like up until not only very recently, brands would be hedging by just making sure they kind of cover their bases with the influencer thing. And now it really feels like they really have seen returns in ways that they can make long-term, year-long, or even multi-year investments, in properties and in creators.
Well, like Shane said, the budgets are shifting, so you have to account and allocate those budgets, and they're getting better at the planning side. I mean, there's still a lot of last-minute trickle-down campaigns that come through, but there's longer-term planning. Okay, we know how much we want to allocate to the influencer space, and this is what we're hoping for on the deliverable side, and you kind of space out those deliverables across however much time.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that the FTC is even considering this is like flabbergasting to me, considering where we were 10 years ago. Like, it's a testament to the evolution of this industry that the FTC is stumbling its way through this, but at least they're in the right area.
Well, the worst purveyor of it was Kim Kardashian, and that's who was held to the fire by the FTC. 100 million followers putting up her little brand deals with no disclosures. And that's who sort of, I think, started the trickle-down effect to everybody else.
I also think that the audience is changing too. I think 5 to 10 years ago, if someone posted a brand deal, it was like, sell out, oh my gosh, you got all this hate. But there's this new generation where they understand that this is a job. Like, if you go and talk to 5th graders, one of the #1 jobs is to be a YouTuber. And so I think they see and understand that it is a business. And so, I mean, for me personally, I really don't get hate for my brand deals as long as they make sense. Like, there's no real big difference, and I really try to focus, if I do get brand deals on YouTube, I do it as much as I can as like a bonus video, so they're not losing anything from me, they're just gaining an extra video, so they don't feel like I'm taking advantage or anything. And obviously I do that the best I can, but I just think it's a different time now, and I think the audience is a lot more forgiving on creators.
Yeah, and brands themselves are a lot more humanized now. I think they've made efforts to behave on social media in a much more familiar and friendly way. And it's when you establish a brand now, you really have to create a personality that people can relate to, that makes it much easier to collaborate with a brand, because it's almost like another friend in the room. And I think that's where it's getting a little bit interesting in terms of brand endorsements, because like brands themselves are now personalities. And I just think that it's just very exciting to see so much resource being invested in this space, because it creates huge opportunities for creators beyond sort of programmatic ad spend, which we've recently seen had a lot of disastrous consequences when you don't know where you're putting your ads. But when you're working with a creator or an influencer, you know exactly who you're working with. And though it might be a little bit more work, now it's becoming a lot more easy, and we have managers and people who are experts to help standardize sort of and facilitate the process so that the expectations are met and we deliver real value.
So we could speak about brands all day, you guys. I love this stuff. But I kind of want to pivot a little bit towards the audience. And, you know, that seems to be the underlying factor. Everything is about the audience. And how do you guys give back to the audience? I want to hear more about that. I know, Drew, you've done a lot of work bringing in content creators with the Special Olympics.
Yeah.
And, you know, so there's a give and take. And I think that maybe sometimes there's not enough attention paid to what you guys are doing. And I know, Adam, you're also doing incredible work. So
yeah, actually, I worked with Adam and some of his clients to bring some creators out to Austria for the World Winter Games and also for the World Games in Abu Dhabi in 2019. The Special Olympics is an incredible organization, and it's about empowerment and about erasing stigma. So it's very much aligned with creators on YouTube who couldn't find a voice in traditional entertainment and found that voice online. I also think just because of the nature of the relationship between audiences and creators, it just lends itself so much easier to causes because there's just so much more meaning imbued in the content in itself. Typically, creators are always making a brave choice. Like Rebecca said, like, you know, when you became a YouTube creator, it was a bold choice for you. And I think that really resonates and inspires creators. And then because of the relationship with your fans and how much you owe them, you really do want to give back. And you're in a great position to do good.
Mm-hmm. Adam, do you want to speak about
Yeah, I mean, it varies talent by talent because each talent has their own personal causes that are near and dear to their heart. We launched last month Select Impact, which is kind of our corporate initiative towards causes, and there are 3 pillars: diversity, mental health, and entrepreneurship. And in diversity, which is where I've personally spent a lot of my time in the last few years with Gigi Gorgeous in helping create original content and campaigns and event presence and fundraising for the LGBT community, including things like Transgender Day of Visibility and Trans Awareness Week, which, you know, for the trans community, they're still a couple steps behind the gay and lesbian community in just pure awareness and recognition of their community. So that's been, you know, very satisfying for me to actually feel like we're doing some good out there in the world, and we get people that come up to us from seeing the documentary This Is Everything, Gigi Gorgeous, and how it's changed their entire life, and just making content available can actually have an effect and bring awareness to different causes, whether it's LGBT or, you know, breast cancer, and all of the Girl Up is Brooklyn and Bailey work with Girl Up. Ava works with environmentally friendly organization World One, one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, and Miriam, you've spoken about wanting to empower women. Can you speak a little bit about how you integrate that?
Sure. My main mission is really to be a source of inspiration. So when a follower looks at my account or reads my blog post, I want them to be inspired. And if wearing a certain type of clothing or doing their hair a certain way makes them feel happier inside, that's ultimately what I want to do. I just give them the tools, and I want them to use the tools to basically feel better inside so they can show the world how they really feel inside. So I really want to be a source of inspiration. And one of the things I like to do, and I try my best, is to connect with my followers. I do have a management team that helps me a lot, but every single email that comes from a fan or follower, I write back to them personally. I answer all my DMs. If they ask me a question, for example, on a picture I've posted, I respond to them. It may not be in the same day, but I will get back to them. And if it has nothing to do with my content, I'm still happy to respond and tell them what I think. And the main reason I do that, I want them to know that I'm more than a picture. I'm more than a video. I'm a person, I'm human, and so are you, and I value them and I appreciate them. And I really want to be able to have that human connection with them.
And I think, Rebecca, you sharing your stories, your health struggles also humanizes you and helps people.
Yeah, so when I had my surgery, I looked and there was nothing online that I could find except a girl in the UK laying out in a bikini with an ostomy bag. And I was like, that doesn't, like, what does she do day to day? Like, how does this work? a disease affects 1.6 million Americans. Like, this is crazy. And so I documented my journey. And at the time, I was in traditional media. And for it to be kind of taken seriously, we put it on iTunes, because it was like, to put it on YouTube, I had no following anyways. It was just like, I think there wasn't enough value in it at the time. But recently, about a month ago, I decided to put my full documentary out on my YouTube channel so that like people could watch it. Anyone that wanted to could. And I think it's important to share our stories. The problem with, I think where I see a problem with creators is when your fans, your supporters feel value through you instead of in themselves. And I see a lot of fans, which is so great, like when they have screen names of people and they become obsessed. But what the problem with that is, and what I see is they are using that creator to lift them up. And I think that that's where we're gonna need to focus for the future generations, is empowering them themselves versus I'm making you feel better. It's like, and I think that's great what you said. I think I see a big weakness, and I struggle with that every day. Like when kids say like I make them happy, that worries me. That's where I don't know how to fix that, but I do see that as a problem now. Whereas an actor, you know, you're a character and they're watching this fake thing, you know, it's like this character, but like we're real life people and they really feel connected. But it's also, I struggle with how to empower them more and make them feel that like you watching me doesn't make you better, like to find it in themselves. And I still am struggling with how to do that.
Yeah, and I think everyone is trying to figure out how to navigate this world, right? You guys are the trailblazers. And speaking to the future and how that looks, I'd love to talk about a little bit what you want to see it evolve into. I don't know who wants to jump into.
I can take that one.
No pressure. It's a loaded question.
Tell us about the future.
About the future, let me tell you, I have a magic ball at home. Well, what I see more and more happening as the market is getting more congested, I guess what I like to see is more unique content. As we see more influencers coming in, I see a lot of copy, and I don't know how to fix that. I think it's a problem. They don't believe in themselves. They don't believe in their own vision, so they feel like they need to copy someone else who's already successful so they can be successful. And if you don't believe in yourself, and if you are not buying your own product, why would somebody else? Why would a brand want to put their products in your hand to sell, and why would someone want to follow you? So hopefully we'll see less of that in the future and more unique content.
I think just pure industry, greater industry awareness and credibility. I think that the dollars moving in our direction is telling, but for more traditional entertainment companies, executives, agencies, etc., to really recognize and give credit to the talent that have put in all the effort and built these businesses and brands on their own. That's always been a little bit of a disconnect, but it's, you know what, we're doing it, so who cares if they catch on? But I do think at some point some recognition, credibility, and just pure like understanding of the successes that have been self-made in the digital space.
I think there's a lot of increased production value across the board, and you're seeing a lot bigger projects. You're seeing larger investments from a brand into creators, which means it's going to be a challenge to stay risky and innovative because there's so much more to lose. I also think that we're getting into a point now where in digital you can make stars, whereas up to this point everyone was a really self-made star in terms of rising up on these platforms. Now with established channels, you can
Team Tenant.
Yeah, I mean you can launch talent, and it sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I'm going to see there's a lot more specialization coming out as well in the industry, where in the last 10 years you had to manage everything from being talent, creator, you had to underwrite it, you had to be the executive producer, you had to be the marketer. Now there's this specialization, which I think is going to increase the quality of content, but this sort of American dream of hitting the jackpot from like basement YouTuber to star, it's going to be much more difficult to achieve that kind of success now that there's saturation in the platforms.
I do think that it's interesting because there's so much that we've already gone through to establish this space in the entertainment industry. But I think at the end of the day, like kind of riding off what you were saying, it's about still staying authentic to ourselves and seeing where that can take us further. Because if we do kind of go towards this, you know, because there's just so much higher production now, it is saturated, it is a lot harder. You just have to stay, the industry itself needs to stay true to itself. And I think that's what was so special and what has made, you know, YouTube and the influencer world rise, is that it's relatable and that it's like a real person, you know what I mean? That is sitting there in front of a camera telling you how they feel on a daily basis. And I think that even though there's a lot to move forward to, like it's going to be important to still have that base.
I see things moving a lot more like commercials on TV. I think we've seen it on YouTube with the backlash of ads where everything is just censored a little bit more. Even your thumbnails, like things that I could do 7 months ago on my thumbnail, like writing OMG, you know, you're gonna get hit for that depending on your audience. I do also see eventually, and I hope, I mean, this is there's hours on TV, and SAG and AFTRA, kids can only work a certain amount of time, and there's no rules right now on digital on YouTube. And I think with a lot of these creators that are underage and putting it out, I think there needs to be laws of some sort to protect them from things. And that's why mental illness, all these things are coming up that haven't been a huge thing before, because these kids are dealing with the same things that I'm dealing with, and some of them are bigger than me, and they're, you know, 13, 14, and I think there at some point needs to be something done to protect kids in this digital space. And I see traditional and digital like merging a lot more, and I think with digital, we realize what digital and influencers can do, and we realize their strengths, but there's something that you can't take away from a talented actor that has spent years training. And we've seen some digital movies that maybe didn't have the talent, but they had people that can drive an audience, where it did well, but then it was a horrible movie maybe because, and I'd really love to see the two merge together, where we can utilize the strengths and the talents of actors that have trained with the social media influencers that can drive an audience, and merging those two together. And I'd really love to see more of the actors on TV. We've seen some of them really embrace the digital media and learn how to use that to grow their own audience. So, yeah.
Our clients' average age, so this is like specific to us, but our clients are super young, so their fans are really young. And we're looking at how Gen Z are spending their money, and so it's like 63% of their $132 billion in buying power is being put towards live, experiential, merchandise, accessories. And so we're finding ways to adapt our talents, content for live, for analog, to get out there. And that's one way we really give back to the fans, is to get out into the field, do the meet and greets, turn our shows into concerts, touring, and we find that, I mean, it's like Michael Jackson-esque, the way these kids freak out, they cry, they faint. I mean, you guys have seen it, and that's one way to really kind of give back and see that, you know, they're actually turning their phones off a lot more. They're watching less TV, they haven't seen content in more than 10 minutes long, and they're getting out to shows, they're experiencing life a little bit more. It's funny, there's a study that shows that we're like the millennials and Gen Z, it's like the loneliest generation that we've ever experienced, like in America, and it's because of this phone stuff, right? And they're seeing that kids are buying record players and vinyl because they think it's new technology. So we're actually in a way we're reverting back in some of our trending. And you look at the way they wear their clothes, like we're back in the 90s now, and you know, Champions having a research, Supreme, these companies, and it's the entire aesthetic and the entire ethos has taken this sort of step back from modernizing and technology and everything. It's just like, put me in a room with my favorite icon and let me see them do what they do.
Yeah.
And we could sling some merch. I mean,
Yeah.
and they have fun,
VidCon,
and
yeah.
you know, and we give them what they want by being you know, touchable.
Right.
There,
Right.
and
Relatable.
analog,
Yeah.
relatable, but there in the room with you, and
Yeah.
that's something that I think we could all kind of look to for the future. I think audio is huge, not, you know, beyond podcasting,
Yeah.
beyond, and we've talked about this before, but beyond music, you know, how you take, you know, you think like War of the Worlds, what Orson Welles did. I mean, people were, not that we want to do this, but it was such a compelling story simply through audio that people were jumping out of buildings thinking that the world was going to end. And so, you know, we're taking voiceover, for instance. What does that mean for content? I mean, you know, we have Blake Weber, who recently saw some success voicing like Cardi B's videos, and he gets picked up by, and it's just fun stuff. And it's just like, how do we kind of like look at the landscape, not be copycats, not, you know, it's like not reinventing the wheel, it's just kind of doing what other people are doing, but merging and like Venn diagramming everything
Yeah.
into like, what do we do now?
And bringing the best
Yeah,
of.
the best of, discarding of what didn't
Yeah.
work. And yeah, for us, it's for touring, really. It's getting out there live.
Yeah. And you were recently in Vice magazine, and you gave SAG-AFTRA a shout out, which is awesome. But
Yeah, I mean, even, you know,
What
big,
was the shout out?
you know, big old CAA. I mean, no matter how much influence and power the company has, and they're basically the Illuminati, so I'm not saying anything bad, but there were times where, for Helen Mirren or Jeffrey Rush, where we couldn't get something done, we'd be able to call SAG and get done what we needed done. And so, you know, I think it's a shame that we're at a point where there's non-unionized digital artists that are yielding more audiences than Jimmy Fallon. You know, we're doing more commercial work than commercials on TV. We're at a point where the two worlds need to start working together. And so, yeah, I just pointed out with Vice, you know, the work we're doing. And Vice are historically not friendly toward digital, so it was nice to see them embracing kind of our thinking and what we're
Yeah.
doing. And I just wanted to, look, I shouted out everybody that helps us do what we do. And it's all team-based. I mean, I'm not the smartest guy, so I hire smart people to do the work that I don't know how to do. And, you know, it's a matter of partnering with the union and other managers even, and other producers, and sort of building this wall against brands that are taking advantage of content creators. You know, going from $4,000 on average CPM spending on media and distribution to today, somebody said last night at our dinner that they got $250 CPMs. I haven't seen that, but that'd be really great. But today, on average of $20 to $25 CPMs, that's a problem. That's billions of dollars being saved by like 50 companies and the dudes at the top. It's not even the middle buyers, it's not the creators, it's a few at the top earning off our backs.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think it's going to come to a head where the union will have to help and we'll have to adhere to it, and brands will too. So yeah, I had to shout that out because I just
Thank
wanted to
you.
kind of, you know, Vice is that publication that maybe be the last non-fake news today, and they like to blow open stories, and I couldn't David versus Goliath, you know, Coca-Cola. Instead,
Yeah.
you know, we kind of
Yeah.
form a little alliance.
It's
and
about
that
creating
was
an
the beginning.
industry standard.
Right.
Drew, do you want to chime in before we direct it to questions from the audience?
No, I just think that I've seen a lot of cycling in this micro industry over the last 10 years, and there are times when we're all high on the hog, and then, you know, demonetization happens. And that wasn't the first time something like that's happened. And you know, we've invested in platforms that you know promise the world to us, like Vessel, even recently, I think, since this last round. So there needs to be some kind of security, and there certainly is no organization from the creators in terms of collectively asserting their voice, other than, you know, the collective sort of outcry around demonetization, which I think the platforms are starting to respond to a little bit. But I think there's a lot more that we can do as an industry and as an interest group to assert our needs, especially to those who are making all the decisions that affect our lives. So that I am looking forward to seeing evolve in the next 10 years.
Do we have a question from the audience?
So I was just curious, today you filled out a story about Elle Mills, 19 years old, already talking about burnout.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, we've got three hardworking, somebody who's been doing it for decades, and and to people that help a bunch of creators do their work. How do you guys deal with burnout issues, trying to crank out content all the time? And how do you guys as managers and agents help support your talent so they can keep being functional?
Well, when I started, I had this very I wasn't in the military, and so I took this militant approach to working with my talent, and they'd have to be at a meeting on time, and that's when I think digital were trying to break into traditional, and traditional buyers and execs sort of had all the leverage, and so our clients would burn out hitting the sort of Hollywood cycle. And now, not to say that, you know, we're late to meetings, but the meetings are set at their schedules, at their behest, and at their convenience now, because they have the power. Our content creators have the power, and I think Hollywood now knows that. So for us, my clients do what they do at their pace, and we adhere to their pace, to what they need, and we literally just help them execute on their vision. So my clients aren't experiencing any burnout personally, but I don't know if that's just, I don't know. I mean, frankly, it's just a matter of letting them do what they do at their own pace, and not pushing the way we might push a traditional actor. You got to get to this, you have to do this. We're not doing that because they own the entire soup to nuts project. Writing, editing, producing, I mean, it's all there, and distribution, so nobody can tell them to do anything that they want to do. And as far as meeting that schedule and adhering to the patternizing of fans, which is really what's, I mean, we're creatures of nature, or of habit, so our fans, they look to our content posts as like almost like a calendar. Like, if it's not there on Wednesday, you know, they're gonna freak out. But we kind of say, look, like, don't say exactly when you're gonna post, just post it on Wednesday, not at a certain time. And it's just a matter of having fun doing what you're doing, and remembering that it's not worth burning out over, because the platforms are gonna be there, the fans are gonna be there.
I would just say, oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, more important for the creator to speak from firsthand.
No, I was just, I love Elle Mills. I think she's a great storyteller. I'm actually very obsessed with her stuff, and I think she's a great person. I think the burnout happens when people go from 0 to 100 really fast. She grew literally overnight, and I think that's hard, especially when you're young, to deal with. This is something that not many people have experienced. And I think for myself, I was producing, while I was growing my channel, I would help other creators grow their channels. And so I really got to see kind of, I guess I kind of saw a big picture of it. And I know that there's a shelf life. I know that there's just so many other avenues, and and I also know that I'm getting paid to do what I love, which is all I ever wanted. So as far as burnout, I think the frustration for me sometimes happens with the algorithm changing, or being frustrated with the views if stuff's being held back. But I love what I do, and I also think that I know that this is a small portion of my life, like being on YouTube, and then it'll transition into something else. And I think the great thing about digital is that every platform is changing. Where maybe 6 months ago I spent a lot of time on Musical.ly because I was like, I need to grow that as much as I can, as fast as I can. I'm not there as much anymore because it doesn't make sense from a business perspective. So in that sense, you never really get burnt out, because you shouldn't ever be doing the same thing over and over. It should always be changing. That if you're moving with what's like what's popular. So yeah, I think it just goes to doing what you love, and then also stepping back and realizing, having a real life, and knowing that like this is a job, and stepping back and knowing that it doesn't define you as a person is very important. And I know it's easy to get caught up in that. And I think just because I came from a different perspective, it's easier for me to understand that now. But I really do feel for the kids and for people that just jumped right in and became famous, because I can't imagine. So I understand, but yeah, it's a bizarre world.
Adam?
I was just going to say, we act as a sounding board for our clients. We're in the trenches with them, and we help provide them with the resources they need to take some of those pressures off their shoulders, whether it's something like an assistant who can help take the administrative work off. We've sent clients and it made introductions to therapists where it makes sense. And some of our clients are very open about their struggles. Lord DIY talks about her anxiety, and so we've helped her address that and figured out the resources needed and how to work with that in growing her career. And specifically for Elle, I think it's exactly what Rebecca said. It was a roller coaster, and she's still on it, and you have to live that publicly in order to be producing content and be true to your audience. So that adds additional pressure because you're in the spotlight of your audience 24/7, and it can really play mind games with you. So I hope that she takes the time to step back and get the help she needs as a person, not as a YouTuber. And then when she's ready to create content, because she's a great content creator, she should come back.
And one of the things that we as a union provide members is access to health care. So we're really very serious about creators having access to therapy where they don't have to pay out of pocket. It's part of just like their job.
How about me? Can you get me a therapist?
Yeah, we'll talk. Yeah. You don't need one. I see a question.
You mean just on like regular? Great. Well, it depends on the format. So we actually do, for the purposes of YouTube and digital, some of our talent we pair with producers, editors, shooters that can help them. But if you're pitching bigger, more traditional concepts, it's similar to anything where it's like you come to the table with your idea, pitch it, and if they're interested to attach and explore the materials, you can go about it that way. I think the best way to speak directly to the creator is to really understand their world. What type of content are they doing? What are their formats? What is their style? Someone like Lord DIY has a very specific editing style, and she prefers to do it herself because it's difficult to teach and offload that to someone else. But if you come in and you learn that side of it, then you can become a necessary resource. So we definitely are always talking to and working with different levels of partners on the production side.
And from a creator side, what I like to hear is, what is your ultimate goal? And then let me create the content the way I want to create it. I want that flexibility. I don't like scripted content. I don't like too much pressure because I know my audience well and I know them better. So I want to be able to create something that my audience is going to like versus being pressured that I need to speak a certain way and use the certain words. I definitely want that flexibility. If
you're speaking to like linear scripted narratives, similar, I liken it to packaging a film. We're not looking to help a producer raise financing for their project. So we'll find out, are you fully financed? What other elements are attached? And then read the script. But for the most part, we're not going to attach, and this is often the ask is, hey, it's one line in the movie, but your client has 8 million followers. Can they be in the movie for scale? It's like, no, not at all. We're not going to help you raise financing for your movie. So it really, and obviously foundationally, there's got to be a vibe, right? Like, we'll put you in the room with the talent, and if you guys vibe out, if they like the script. But it's very similar to what you've probably experienced dealing with the agents at the other agencies. Are you fully financed? Who's attached? And we go from there.
The best partners I've found on the producing side are the people that are either on the platforms themselves and like wholly understand the functionality, the algorithms, the formats, or the people that have kids. Like now I'll talk to top executives, and the fact that they have a 13-year-old daughter, they see it and they get it firsthand. So that brings a lot to the table.
Love those kids.
Amazing. So we are at time. I want to thank our amazing panel. Give them a round of applause. And then where can people find you guys? Is there a handle or place that you want to?
TwoFilter.com. Subscribe to the newsletter. Get the top stories delivered directly to your inbox every day of the week, and it's free for you. It costs us a lot to put that news out, so subscribe.
And it's awesome.
You can find me on YouTube at Roxaterisa and on Instagram at Roxaterisa.
You can find me on Instagram at glamandposh, and my blog is glamandposh.com.
I'm Rebecca Zmolo on every platform because I would forget it otherwise. So just my name.
Sam Lee, Leigh on Instagram, and we're at inartists.co, not com. Co.
Like a company.
Yeah.
Also .co, select.co, and it's Select Next on all social. If you go to the site, you can see all of our latest news and information, a little bit more on the business.
Cool, and you can follow at SAG-AFTRA. And on that, thank you again. And thanks for joining us.
Cool. Wait, can I show you this girl? She's not my client, but she's...